The satanic panic that started in the 80s was true. I know because I was there. My favorite rock bands were descriptively being burned at the stake at the time. And growing up in central PA, many Bible thumpers abound, looked down at anyone with long hair as being a demonic rock and roll, dirty hippie, thug, druggy. Yeah, all those labels like rolled up into one. But thankfully I didn't have parents that saw it that way. And I didn't have friends that saw it that way. Beyond this panic, what was really true? Was it all just panic? I like to approach my YouTube videos like a documentary film in the sense that I like the end result or conclusion to have been a journey and not just like some foregone conclusion. At least that's my goal. So if I think I know the answer to something before I embark on it, I try and first look at the opposite side then before I look at the side of what I think might be the foregone conclusion. Is there much truth to the devil, Satan, Lucifer, being responsible for ritualistic murders? And look, I'm certainly not trying to get Satan off the hook for anything. I'm just trying to say human beings will declare Satan in order to get them off the hook for a lot of things. This has been a theme throughout history. Mass hysteria over satanic abuse and true crime murders rose to ridiculous proportions in the 80s. Some became a self-fulfilling prophecy where a lot of times true crimes were carried out in the name of Satan, and conversely a list of innocent people were also wrongly accused by paranoid evangelicals akin to the witch trials of like 1692 in Salem, Massachusetts. But this is a gripping and controversial subject, and it still asks the question, is this still a thing in 2020? You know, while examining these cases of satanic influence in true crime, I found that most of the people were mainly rebellious or looking for power somehow, looking to feel a part of something. Now, it isn't necessarily bad to feel a part of something. There's a lot of great things to feel a part of. And even like some like little skinny teenager with a black metal shirt, you know, sometimes that's just because they love the music, or sometimes it's because they feel that they're empowered, and it's like a way of saying like, get the fuck away from me. When I was growing up in central Pennsylvania, I wasn't really a jock or college bound. I mean, I wrestled in school, I played baseball, but not much, and rock was my thing. Rock was really my religion. I mean, I wasn't atheist or anything like that, but it really gave me something to believe in. If I dressed and related to the rock stars that were out there, it made me feel empowered, like I wasn't alone. Like somewhere out there, there's a place where I belong. And if you don't get it, then that's your problem. Now back to rock bands for a second, because there were accusations about rock bands being responsible for suicide, Satan worship. Everybody from Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin to Blue Oyster Cult to Alice Cooper, Kiss to AC/DC, and then the next generation iterations like Marilyn Manson. But also the black metal movement many times spills into satanic territory. And that scene deserves its own documentary, and I think there's a few of them, quite honestly. I'll give you a for instance. There was a band called Mayhem, and on April 8th, 1991, vocalist, Dead was his name, committed suicide in the house that was owned by the band. He was found by guitarist Euronymous, and he had slit wrists and a shotgun wound to the head. And Dead's suicide note stated, "Excuse all the blood." The next Mayhem album became infamous for depicting the photograph of the suicide taken by Euronymous. He actually went in, rearranged a few things, and took a photo of dead with a shotgun wound to his head. There was rumor that Euronymous cannibalized his deceased friend, and he made a stew with pieces of his brain. And Euronymous also reportedly made necklaces with fragments of Dead's skull, which is now known to be true. So what happened was, in disgust with Euronymous' actions, the bass player, whose name was Necro Butcher, he left the band. And he was replaced by Burzum's Varg Vilkerns, who on August 10th, 1993, confronted Euronymous at his apartment and brutally murdered him by stabbing him a total of 23 times, 2 to the head, 5 to the neck, and 16 to the back. To the public, metal music finally had truly become a tool of Satan. What's interesting, though, is that most bands with satanic references say they don't actually worship the devil, and that the symbolism depicts freedom to them, freedom from not being able to do what they really want to do or express themselves. Except for the 70s band Coven. They flat out said, yeah, we're Satanists. Now, what I'm most interested in, though, is what really associated with satanic, ritualistic, and abuse, what was truly historic cases of satanic-driven murder. And was there much of it, really? Is there much of it? Ricky Queso Jr., also known as the Acid King, was an American killer who murdered his 17-year-old friend Gary. Now this guy, Ricky, he dealt drugs in Northport, New York, and dabbled in the occult and Satanism, and was a member of a loosely organized cult at Northport High School called Knights of the Black Circle. They held satanic ceremonies mostly in Northport, Long Island. They were said to have celebrated a German pagan holiday at the infamous Amityville House in 1984, which is the year Poison moved to California. There were 2 other guys that were present at the murder scene, and it was in the woods near Northport. And all 4 were high on what they believed to be mescaline, but mostly they think that it was LSD. And the murder became a sensational thing in the New York news, of course, New York City, across the nation, really, due to the alleged torture of the kids and supposed occult aspects of the murder. Casso was wearing an AC/DC t-shirt at the time of his arrest. He was a fan of bands like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, bands that I'm a fan of. Ricky committed suicide on July 7th, 1984. Moving beyond music, let's go to the satanic panic of ritual abuse. In 1966, Anton LaVey established the Church of Satan, and ritualistic killings began in August 1969 with Charles Manson slayings, although Manson was never really truly associated with Satanism. He referenced the Bible, but later would be lumped all into the same category. And you'll see where I'm going with some of this in a minute. The era of the serial killer had emerged. The Zodiac Killer, David Berkowitz, these were people that wrote taunting letters to the press and the police. Ted Bundy escaped from prison and immediately resumed his terrifying killing sprees. John Wayne Gacy murdered teens and used his clown outfit to perform for children and then buried them in his house. Then, of course, there was Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. However, the OG killer, ritualistic abuse perpetrator, nasty guy whom I did a pretty extensive piece on, was Ed Gein. Make sure to check that guy out. So it seems that even if the killer or killers did not reference Satan in any way, the nature of their crimes started to become associated with evil, and therefore it was the work of Satan and Satan's minions. And it's easy to see why the symbolism, the ritualistic killings, the heavy metal music, and the paranoid outlook for the evangelical community all tied together to create the satanic panic. In Palo Alto, California, there was a case of a 42-year-old that contained details of the murder so gruesome that some people labeled it as satanic. Arliss Perry, who was a 19-year-old girl, was found nude from the waist down in the back of a church. She was molested with a 3-foot candlestick and died by a blow from an ice pick to the head. There was a book called The Ultimate Evil that suggested Perry was killed on instruction from Satanists who followed her from her hometown in North Dakota. This was an unsolved murder for quite a number of years. But not long ago, the man was linked, by DNA by the way, to that 1974 murder in that ritualistic church killing. He actually was about to be apprehended by detectives who got a search warrant, went to where he was staying, because they found out that he was a security guard at the time at the Stanford Memorial Church where she was killed. The police went to apprehend him. They heard a gunshot, finally opened the door and found that he had killed himself. So he knew he was getting apprehended, and he knew he was going to get fingered for the murder from 1974, so he killed himself. This was just a few years ago. Take care of each other and keep rock alive. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like down below, and click that notification button so that you know when I upload new videos.